Hello, Assalamu alaikum. This is our first lecture of the course of Western Intellectual History. The title of the lecture is Brief Definitions of the Branches of Philosophy. I am Dr. Maha Sallam, Associate Professor of English Literature, Faculty of Arts, Ain Shams University. In this lecture, we are going to examine very briefly some definitions about the word philosophy and the branches of philosophy, including epistemology, ethics, aesthetics, political philosophy, ontology, and metaphysics. The term philosophy literally means the love of wisdom. However, if we talk about philosophy as an academic discipline that studies the work of philosophers, one has to point out that there is no common definition which all philosophers have agreed about. There are a number of definitions. Some claim that philosophy refers to thinking in the abstract, that is, thinking about abstract rather than concrete concepts. Abstract concepts would include such things as truth, virtue, beauty, reality, so on. Others argue that philosophy is a set of basic ideas guiding our everyday living. A further definition is that philosophy encompasses what one wants to get out of life. Now, this absence of a consensual definition agreed upon by all can be considered as an advantage because it makes philosophy an ongoing process of judging the way people think and opening up possibilities of thinking differently. In other words, the study of philosophy develops our skills of critical thought. We all need to be able to think critically, instead of accepting whatever we are told or whatever we read or hear, and instead of taking everything as a received idea uncritically without examining whether it is true or false, we all need to have skills of critical thought in order to decide for ourselves what concepts we are willing to adopt, and philosophy can help us in this context. The study of philosophy can be divided into a number of fields that will be discussed in the following pages. For instance, we will talk about epistemology, ontology, ethics, and aesthetics as some of these fields. Epistemology is a branch of philosophy that studies knowledge, everything about knowledge. If you study the history of knowledge, the methods of knowledge, the principles of knowledge, then you are doing epistemology. The word knowledge itself can have more than one meaning. It can refer to acquaintance or familiarity. If you say, I know this person or I know this city, one would presume that you are familiar with or acquainted with the person or the city. Knowledge can also refer to a skill. You can say, I know how to use a computer or I know how to speak Spanish. Then you are referring to a certain skill. Knowledge can refer to something you have personally checked. If you say the temperature outside is 32 degrees centigrade, or the weight of this suitcase is 20 kilograms, then you have presumably checked a thermometer or a scale in order to know the weight of the suitcase or the temperature outside the room. Knowledge also can refer to the application of a rule. When you study mathematics, you get to know rules of addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. And when you say, I know that 2 plus 2 equals 4, you are actually applying one of the rules that you have studied. Now, how can we reach knowledge? We can reach knowledge sometimes by using our senses. Sight, hearing, smell, touch, taste, they are important means of knowledge. They can tell us so many things. Also, we can reach knowledge by means of our thinking minds. They are essential means of knowledge. Some philosophers believe that the knowledge that we get by the senses is more important, and others believe that the knowledge we get by our minds or by rational thinking is more important. Again, a third group believe that we need a combination of both the senses and the minds to reach knowledge. And according to these divisions, we have different schools of philosophy, as we will later know. There is again knowledge that we reach by intuition. Intuition is something different from the senses and different from the thinking mind. It is just that you get to know deep inside you that this thing is so. If you have this intuition about something, especially when we are talking about religious belief, for example, then intuition also is considered as an important means of knowing knowledge or getting knowledge. Ethics is another branch of philosophy, mainly preoccupied with studying virtue and vice, the definition of virtue, the definition of vice, what is right and what is wrong, as regards, of course, our actions as human beings and our goals in life. Aesthetics. Aesthetics is a branch of philosophy that studies art and beauty. It studies, for example, painting, literature, music, architecture, beauty in general, natural beauty, beauty of natural landscapes, and also it studies the human reactions to them. For example, if you are doing literary criticism, then you are studying a branch of aesthetics. If you are studying tragedy, for example, and how humans, the audience, react to a certain tragic play, a tragedy by the Greeks, by Sophocles or Aeschylus, or a tragedy by Shakespeare or a modern tragedy, usually we need to study the reaction of audience to this tragedy. Is it just a sad reaction, or do they feel like some sort of catharsis, as if they have been cleansed out of the excessive emotion they have? They get to feel pity and horror when they are following the events of the tragedy, but towards the end, they feel like relaxed, as if things are as they should be now, and things have come a full circle. So those who are doing literary criticism or artistic criticism in general, it means they are studying under the term aesthetics. We have a branch called political philosophy. Sometimes it is considered to be a separate branch on its own, and sometimes it is considered to be a branch of ethics. And political philosophy is concerned with how we live together as communities. Thus, it studies the forms of government and examines who is entitled to make the laws and where that entitlement comes from, what are the duties and obligations of the citizen, and what are the duties and obligations of the state, what are the rights of the citizen, and what is the connection between rights and responsibilities, who exactly is entitled to exercise power over other persons, and in what circumstances is this entitlement given or taken away, and so on. Now we come to a branch of philosophy called ontology. Ontology concerns itself with the study of being or existence, the study of what is or what exists. And it can range, the questions of ontology can range from what does it mean for a thing to exist when we say I exist, or this table, or this chair, or this animal, or the forests, or the oceans, or demons, or spirits. If we say whatever item exists, what does this mean? And it can also range to questions or move on to questions that seek to identify and establish the relationships between existent things. For example, if you say that man exists and time exists, what is the relationship between man and time? Ontology, mainly, to put it very simply, is concerned with like drafting a complete inventory of the universe. If you are making a list, like these are the items or the entities that exist in the universe, and you are writing 1, 2, 3, 400 million, so on. If you are doing this inventory, you are doing ontology. And there is another branch called metaphysics. Metaphysics is usually confused with ontology, compared and contrasted to it, because the two branches are concerned with existence or being. But a good way to differentiate between them is this way. Metaphysics actually seeks to explain the nature of the entities in the inventory of the universe. You see, like ontology comes first and it makes an inventory, a list that has all the items that exist. And then metaphysics comes and examines each of these items, trying to discover the nature of these items. For example, if you are making a list of all the colors, if you are saying colors exist in the universe, and then you make a list, you say, for example, number 1, white color, number 2, black color, 3, red, 4, blue, 6, 7, so on. If you are making an inventory of colors, this would belong to ontology. But if you come and ask about the nature of this entity, like, is this color, the color red or the color green, is it a separate entity that exists on its own, or is it just a quality of another entity? For example, when we say a red rose, the rose is an entity that exists presumably in our universe. Now, this redness, is it separate from the rose? Can we have red on one side and rose on the other, or are they together? Again, if you have a list of virtues, if you say virtues include kindness, generosity, courage, caring for others, and other virtues, then if you take one of them and you say, let us see what is the definition of generosity and how does it relate to human beings, and is it something hereditary that you inherit through your genes, or is it something acquired that you learn how to have this virtue? Is it something that you train yourself to have? Can you lose it once you have it? Do you have it for all eternity, or can you lose it? If you are thinking about the nature of each entity in your list, then you are doing metaphysics. Also, let us have further examples. If we make, for example, a list of all the detectives in English literature, if we say we have Sherlock Holmes, and we have Miss Marple, and we have Hercule Poirot, and so many other characters of detectives in English literature, you can have this list and it would be part of ontology. Like, these detective fiction characters, they exist. But metaphysics would come and ask further. It would come and say, okay, let us see, Sherlock Holmes or Hercule Poirot, are they like real individuals, like the individuals in real life? Obviously, they are not. They are fictional. They are parts of works of literature. So how does a fictional individual or an abstract individual, how is it an artifact, if you like? How is it different to, and how is it similar to the human beings, for example? So if you are making a list of entities that exist, you are doing ontology. If you are thinking about the nature of each entity, then you are doing metaphysics. With this, we come to metaphysics. Metaphysics is the study of being as being. speculation about the nature of what is or what exists, about the nature of reality, or what sorts of things are real. It also seeks basic criteria or first principles to determine what sorts of things are real and what are not. Metaphysics can address such topics as space and time, topics as determinism and free will. Do we have free will to choose our actions, or is the human being predetermined in a certain sense? It can also address the topic of God. Metaphysics can address the topic of God, can address the topic of mind and matter, identity and change, as just examples of the questions and the topics it can address. It can try to answer questions like, why do I exist? What is the meaning of life? Does the world exist outside of the mind, or is it all in our minds and there is nothing outside? So, finally, to settle this point between ontology and metaphysics, ontology comes before metaphysics, since you need to study what are the entities that exist before studying or trying to determine the nature of these entities. Now, this has been a very brief and simplified overview of the definitions of the basic branches of philosophy, and thank you for being attentive. Looking forward to meeting you in other lectures. All my best and good luck.